Hi, I'm Ben Orford and we're going to show you how to sharpen a typical bushcraft knife using a Japanese waterstone. So we're going to show you a simple step-by-step process to sharpen your typical bushcraft knife with a flat or Scandi grind using a Japanese waterstone that's got a 1000 grit on one side and 6000 grit on the other. So it's a good idea to work on a really solid bench. And you also want good light, either from a window or from a lamp. And the first thing we want to do is actually have a look down the cutting edge, and we want to see if there's any nicks, any damage, any light spots bouncing back at us. They're going to be the areas where we're going to have to concentrate to remove on the stone. So the main problem people have is actually seeing where they're removing steel from the knife when they've got it on the stone. So the thing that I find that works really well is to actually colour the bevel in itself with a marker pen, and then this gives us a really good visual indicator where we're removing the steel and where it's making contact with the surface of the stone. So we're going to start with the 1000 grit side of the stone, the coarser side. Make sure that the surface is nice and wet, and then we're going to start with the straight section of the knife. So we start by laying that onto the stone, square to the stone itself, and then we're going to tilt it up until we hear and see the bevel click onto the stone, and you can see the water squirt out from underneath that bevel. With additional support from this hand on the back of the knife, we can then push away from ourselves, back and forth along the stone, trying to slice that water off the surface. Now we're not going to try and get the belly and the tip of the knife with this particular angle. We're just concentrating on the straight section of the knife. Not too much pressure, and after a few passes stop and have a look and see if we're actually removing that pen. So once you're happy that you've removed all the pen from that flat section of the bevel, we now need to work on the belly through to the tip of the knife. Now to get that in contact with the stone, we have to take a slightly different grip. We hold it more at 45 degrees to the stone, and then what we're going to do is we're going to lift this backhand until we see the bevel make contact with the stone and that water squirt from underneath the bevel. Because we're only making contact with a very small section of the bevel, we have to just gradually lift this backhand and do one little section at a time, and keep lifting that backhand until we get through to the tip. Pay careful attention when you do get to the tip, because if you lift it too far you can drive that tip into the surface of your stone, and that's going to damage your stone and your knife. So we have a good look now and make sure that we've removed all the pen from the bevel. If you find that there's any little areas of black still left behind, go back to the stone and repeat the process. Now to do the other side of the bevel, some people hold it in their left hand, but I find that this is a little bit uncontrollable. So my preferred method is to still hold it in my right hand, but this time we're actually going to be pulling it back towards ourselves. Still concentrating on that flat section to start with. We lay it on the stone and then carefully draw it back towards ourselves. Try not to let it rock on our return stroke, and apply a little bit of pressure to make sure you keep the bevel in contact with the stone at all times. Once you're happy that you've removed all the pen from the flat section of the bevel, we still need to do the belly through to the tip. So we take the same 45-degree stance on the stone, but this time we're pulling back towards ourselves, remembering to increase our backhand that's holding the knife to engage the bevel onto the stone. So now we want to carefully wipe away the slurry with an old cloth, always coming from behind the cutting edge. The reason why we want to give it a good clean now is so that we can have a look along that cutting edge, and any of those flat spots or nicks that we saw at the beginning, we want to make sure we've got rid of those. Now we also should have produced a burr if we've actually got it sharp. So to test for a burr, you wipe your thumb carefully off the edge and you should feel a little hook of steel grab your skin. Now this should be on the opposite side of the side that you've just sharpened. So if you're happy that you've removed any damage from your blade, it's now time to polish the edge. So we flip the stone over and use the 6000 grit side, and this will help gradually remove that burr from the bevel. We repeat the same process as we've done before. If you want to, you can recolour the bevel in. It's always a good process to do when you're learning. If you're happy to just go straight ahead to the stone and repeat those same steps. So the 6000 grit side of the stone will have given us a very polished edge and removed any burr. To get the ultimate edge, we find that if you strop it with a piece of leather and some honing paste, it's going to make it razor sharp. So you can apply some tormek paste to the surface of your leather strop, and then carefully, always making sure that you draw away from the cutting edge, apply the knife bevel onto the leather strop and pull it back several times on each side. Turn it over, making sure that you push away from the cutting edge. So the advantage of using the strop to finish that cutting edge is that it rounds the edge ever so slightly, which means that the edge is going to last longer. So a paper test is always a good test to see how sharp your edge is, but don't just go wildly chopping away at pieces of paper. Actually see if you can take a very, very fine cut and then make very small fine curls of paper. If you find that it will do that, that means that you've got it nice and sharp all the way along the edge. So once you're happy that you've got your knife really nice and sharp, it's a good idea just to apply some oil, some camellia oil, some WD-40, just to protect the blade. So there you go. Hope you found that useful, and if you like it, then subscribe to our channel.